Hello and welcome back. My name is Lalit Soni and you are watching Target UPSC Prelims 2024 Current Affairs series by Drishti IAS. In these modules, we will be talking about certain current affairs related events which has happened in the last particular year, and that can be important from your UPSC's prelims point of view. So let's start with this particular episode. In this episode, we'll be talking about the current affairs from the IR section, and this is the 5th episode of IR. So there are already 4 episodes which has been uploaded, so you can go and watch those videos as well. So let's start with the today's discussion. In today's discussion, our focus will be mostly around the summits which has happened, and to give you an idea about the bodies which are existing. Okay, so let's start with the 18th G20 Summit. You know that G20 Summit has happened in India this time, and it was in India's presidency, and that is why it was considered as a successful summit, wherein they have gone for certain steps which has been taken by the global community in this particular summit, which has been seen as progressive steps when we are talking about the inclusion of African Union or other than some climate actions they have taken. Okay, so why in discussion? So 18th G20 Summit was held in New Delhi in 2023. The summit was first time it was hosted in India for the first time. Okay, and it was done in the India's presidency. Okay, so all the G20 leaders has come and visited India, and the theme of this particular summit was Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that is one earth, one family and one future. That is basically giving you an idea of inclusive development and taking care of all the community, or you can say including all the community for the development. Okay, now coming to the G20, here you can say this was established in 1999 following the Asian financial crisis, and 1990s the G20 was established as a forum for the finance ministers and the central bank governors, then raised the summit level in 2008 to address the global financial and the economic crisis of 2008. So basically it was established in 1999. Okay, and then there were various activities which has happened. What was aim was to secure the global financial stability by involving world's largest, advanced and the emerging economies. These are the structures which has been given. There is no permanent secretariat for this. Okay, and there is no headquarter. Now here you can say challenges are there which from which you can go, because recently you know that while this summit was happening, there was issues related to Russia-Ukraine war, China's strategic rise and NATO's expansion. All these things has been discussed in this particular summit. These are the member countries, that is Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada. These are the countries basically which are considered to be either developed economies or they are emerging economies. Okay, other than that, in this particular summit, African Union has also actually joined it. So now it can be considered as G21, but formally till now its name is G20. Okay, now considering this is the expanse of this particular, you can say, organization. So you can say that world over there are countries which are included in this particular organization. Okay, and India is obviously a part of it, and this time India was the president of this particular summit which has happened. Now key findings of the 18th G20 Summit. As I told you, acceptance of African Union as a member. So what is the, you can say, significance of that? Because we are now, India is becoming a voice of global south. Okay, now in India's presidency, we have actually accepted African Union in the G20. Okay, so now basically that is to enhance the, you can say, representation of the African continent, or you can say the global south. Okay, so that is one strategic importance of this representation of the developing countries in this particular forum. The country decided to include African Union as a permanent member. EU's membership of G20 provides an opportunity to reorient the global trade, finance and the investment. Okay, so this was the general overview. Now second thing what has happened is that there was a particular you can say infrastructure corridor which has been proposed by India, that is India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. We have talked about this in our various current affairs session, but again I'll give you a passing reference. That's USA, Saudi Arabia, European Union, UAE, France, Germany, Italy. These are the countries which has signed the MOU related to that. This is part of the broader initiative that is called Partnership for the Global Infrastructure Investment, that is PGII. Okay, so remember this particular these three things. When we are talking about the objective is to connect the India, or you can say South Asia with Europe. Okay, and through the Middle East. Okay, now here you can see that there are various ports. Okay, like Jawaharlal Nehru Port in Mumbai, and then we have this Jebel Ali Port, then Riyadh from the Saudi Arabia it will be passing through. Then there is this Al Haditha in Saudi Arabia. Then we have this Haifa Port. This Haifa port is quite important because Israel has been in news for a while now, and this Haifa port belongs to Israel. Okay, Then there is this Piraeus port, which is in Greece, so that is also there. So please remember all these ports which are important for you, and this is basically how it will be. Okay, so there will be two kind of corridors which will be there. Okay, one will be your eastern and one will be your northern corridor. Okay, now this is your eastern corridor over here, and this is your northern corridor. Now here you can see there are sea routes and there are land routes. So basically it is a multimodal project. Okay, now moving further, I hope this is clear that they are basically connecting India to Europe via Middle East. Okay, now moving further here, Global Biofuel Alliance. Okay, this is also proposed, or you can say this is an India-led initiative wherein we are focusing on the development of the biofuels or adoption of the biofuels. Okay, so GBA is an India-led initiative that aims to develop an alliance of governments, international organization and the industry to promote adoption of biofuels. Okay, with the name it is clear. Now, why it is important for India? Because it will accelerate the India's existing biofuel programs such as PM Jeevan Yojana, Satat Yojana, Govardhan scheme. So you can go through these schemes. That is your homework now. Okay. So I hope this is clear. So these are the three initiatives which has been taken. These are the three important initiatives. There were other initiatives, but I don't think that will be important from your prelims point of view, because these three initiatives are taken by India and they have strategic, you can say, significance for India as well. So that is why we have taken these three initiatives here. Okay, now moving to next part, that is your Global South Summit. Okay, we will talk about the what is Global South etc. in the further slide, but first we will see Voice of Global South Summit, VOGSS, which has happened virtually in November 2023. The idea here is to remember that what is importance for India. So it reflects India's commitment to promote solidarity among the nations and strengthens its leadership in the Global South. As I told you already in the G20 discussion, that India is now trying to be a voice of the Global South. Okay, so that is one such initiative. The theme was, the inaugural theme was Together for Everyone's Growth and with Everyone's Trust. Okay, and the concluding sessions focus was on Global South, Together for One Future. Okay, here you can see again they are talking about the inclusivity. That was the theme of the G20 as well. Okay, now moving further, here you can see what was the key features or what was the need of this particular summit. So ultimately, whatever decision has been taken in the G20 summit, so they will be talking about the implementation of that. Okay, with respect to the Global South. Okay, now objective of the summit is to ensure continued momentum for the effective implementation of the G20 decisions with a special focus on the developing countries, basically on the Global South. Now Global South is the center, Global South Center of Excellence, that is Dakshina initiative launched by Indian Prime Minister, which aims to promote cooperation among the developing countries by acting as an encyclopedia and a think tank. Okay, so it is a body which will act as a think tank for the Global South. This initiative is important for us because it has been taken by India itself. Okay, so that is Dakshin initiative, that is Global South Center of Excellence. Okay, now topics like sustainable development, energy transition, global you can say climate financing, technological transformation, digital transformation, all these has been discussed in this particular summit, including terrorism. Okay, now moving further, there is this concept of 5 C's. 5 C's has been given for the Global South, that is your consultation, cooperation, communication, creativity and capacity building. Okay, so please remember these key terms. This you can use in your mains, but for prelims they might not ask you these things, but for your mains this can be important. Okay, but since they have mentioned it, so we have actually talked about it. Now moving further to the Global South. What is Global South? Generally when we are talking about the Global South, what we mean is that these are the countries which are either developing or the underdeveloped countries. Okay, so again there is a group of countries which are developing or they are under development. So these are basically your Global South. Now Global South refer to the diverse countries based on the geopolitical, historical and the developmental factors. Now many countries include Global South are located in the northern hemisphere. Now don't go for the the name because it can be a misnomer, because all the countries or not all the countries are in the southern hemisphere. There are certain countries which are also present in, or you can say most of the countries are in the northern hemisphere. Okay, now there is this particular line, that is Brent line. Okay, we will talk about this line over here. So this is proposed by a French German Chancellor Willy Brandt in 1980s as a visual depiction of the north-south divide based on the development, okay, or per capita GDP. Here you can say he has drawn this particular line. He has said that the countries above this particular line are basically you can say developed countries, or they have better GDP. per capita GDP is better in these countries, and the lines or you can say countries which are lying south of this particular line, that is Brent line, these are basically your global south, or you can say these are either developing countries or they have lesser stage of development over here. So they have poor per capita GDP, okay, or poor developmental levels over there, okay. So that is about your Brent line, okay. The line marks the global economic divide, zigzagging across the continents, covering the Africa, Middle East, part of India, China, except Australia and the New Zealand, okay. So here you can see these Australia and New Zealand are out of it. So we can say that even the southern hemisphere countries like Australia and New Zealand are developed countries, so they are not part of your Brent line, okay. Now moving further, next article is related to your 20th ASEAN-India Summit 2023. Last year this India participated in the Association of Southeast Asian Nation, that is ASEAN-India Summit in Jakarta, or that is Indonesia, in the Indonesia. So ASEAN is important for us. We are not members of ASEAN, but we have a quite collaboration with ASEAN on the various fronts. When we are talking about, we have a strategic relations with ASEAN countries as well. So ASEAN is important for our Look East policy as well as the Act East policy, okay. So in 1990s we have come up with the Look East policy, and in 2014 we have come up with the Act East policy, okay. And the more emphasis is on the collaboration and you can say economic development of this particular area. The Indian Prime Minister presents 12-point proposal to strengthen India-ASEAN cooperation, including the connectivity, digital transformation, trade, economic engagement, addressing contemporary challenges, etc., etc., okay. The important aspect here is that people to people connect, okay. So that is one important aspect of India-ASEAN relations. Now what is ASEAN? ASEAN is a grouping of 10 countries. We will talk about that. In 1967, 8th August 1967, Bangkok it was established. The founding countries of the ASEAN include Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore and Thailand. Mostly you can say that these are countries of Southeast Asia, okay. The organization aimed to promote stability and the economic development in these countries. The presidency changed according to their, you can say, on the basis of alphabetical rotation, okay. Now these are the countries which are basically part of your ASEAN. Here countries are mentioned. You can say Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand and Vietnam. This is the map of ASEAN countries. So you can go through this map. You cannot be making any mistakes in this particular map because this area is quite important for us, okay. So here we have this Malacca Strait as well. We have Sunda Strait. Then we have this issue of you can say South China Sea. This is the area. Here you can say this is the Vietnam and Philippines. This is the area of your cow's tongue, etc. So you cannot be missing in this particular area, okay. Now moving further, Asia Pacific Forum on Human Rights. Now with the name itself, it is suggesting that it is something on the human rights. The President of India inaugurated annual general meeting and the biannual conference of Asia Pacific Forum on Human Rights in New Delhi, okay. This is to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, that is UDHR. Then moral obligation to protect human rights. Obviously, as I told you, this is you can say with the name it is clear that it is something to do with the human rights. So that is having a moral obligations, okay. Now Asia Pacific Forums, let's talk about this particular organization, okay. So it was established in 1996, National Human Rights Institution across the Asia Pacific region. So what is the basically idea about this particular thing is that the National Human Rights Institution, like when we are talking about India, we have National Human Rights Commission. So such institution in this particular region, Asia Pacific region, they will come together and talk about the human rights over there. Now it aims to address major human rights challenges in the region. There are 17 full members and 8 associate members. To admit as a full member, you have to actually there are certain requirements. You have to comply with all the requirements, then you will be becoming a full member. And then if you are going for some requirements and some are not being fulfilled, then you can be an associated member, okay. National Human Rights Institution that partially complied with the Paris principles are granted as the association or associate membership. These basically Paris principles are the principle you have to comply with in order to be a member of your this particular forum, that is Asia Pacific Forum on the natural human rights. Now Asia Pacific Forum objective, so obviously with the name it is clear that it will be related to your human rights only, to promote establishment independent human national human rights institutions in Asia Pacific region. As I told you, there are Paris principles. Now these Paris principles are basically some instruction you have to be complying in order to be a member. So one instruction is that you should have a national human right institution in your body, in your country. Now, to assist the members of such institution for the effective work, function and services representing the collective voice of the members on a regional and the international human right issues. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Now we can move further. G77. So this is also a grouping with the, you can say, number of members. Here they are saying that 77, but this was initially there were 77 members. Now it has been increased to nearly 134 members. Now this grouping is not very much important, but you should know the objective of this particular grouping. So recently China and the members of the group of 77 countries has gathered for the 3rd South Summit. Okay, now that has happened in Kampala, Uganda. Issue including trade, investment, sustainable development, climate change, poverty alleviation and the digital economy were discussed in that. Theme was leaving no one behind. Again, inclusive development. Okay, now here you can see what is G77. So it is a group of 77 countries which has came into existence in 15th of June 1964. The joint declaration was signed during the first session of the United Nations Conference on the Trade and Development, that is UNCTAD. I hope you will go and read about this particular organization. Okay, in Geneva, this group 77, or you can say G77, has nearly 134 members. As I told you, this has been expanded except for China. Now this particular group says that China is our member, but China says that no, I'm not a member, I'm a partner. Okay, Chinese government does not consider itself a member but rather a partner. Okay, but G77 lists China as its member. Okay, so I don't know why they do that, but that is the case. So if they ask, they won't ask you about the membership of China because that is a contested topic. UPSC don't ask such things. Okay, but just know that. Here, these are the map of this particular area. Here you can say that except China, they have not taken China in this particular thing. Otherwise, all the countries here are mostly members except for 1 or 2 countries of African continent and then Australia, New Zealand, etc. So mostly there are nearly 134 members of this particular you can say organization. The aim was to go for the development of this particular region, or you can say global south, or the grouping of this least developed or developing countries, mostly because again you can see that that concept of your Brent line is working over here, because mostly the developed countries are not member of it. Okay, so now coming forward for the L.69 Group, why it was in discussion, because the last September foreign ministers of the L.69 Group met on the sidelines of the 78th session of the UN General Assembly, that is UNGA, okay, to exchange views on the reforms on the UN Security Council. Again, now this grouping per se is not that much important, but the thing is the objective is important over here. Just remember that the objective is to go for the UNSC reforms. Okay, here you can say recognizing the weakness of the UN Security Council in addressing the global challenges. When we are talking about the Israel-Hamas issues which has happened, Russia-Ukraine issues, UN Security Council, UNSC has not performed as it should be. So they are saying that there is a weakness in this particular you can say structure of UNSC. So recognizing the weakness of the UN Security Council in addressing the global challenges, the group, that is L69 group of countries, has committed to inject new life into the efforts towards the reforming of UNSC. Okay, so that is basically the objective over here. Here you can say L69 is composed of the pro-reform member states, primarily developing countries, Africa, Latin America, Caribbean, Asia and the Pacific region. Now members, this group currently include more than 40 members. Okay, they form a major faction united by the common objective of achieving permanent and the comprehensive reforms on the United Nations Security Council. As I told you, they are working towards the reforms. Okay, India is also a member of this group because India is also aspiring for the permanent membership. Okay, so that is why this particular grouping becomes important for you. Remember the name, that is L69. India is also a member and the objective is to go for the reforms of the UNSC. Okay, I hope this is clear. Now with that, I would like to wrap this session over here. I'll see you in the next episode. Till then, have a good day. Thank you.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.